Well, good afternoon and welcome to Round the Table live with Christian Concern. It's great to see you and great to be back in action with this, having had a break over the summer. So today we're going to talk about the Wilberforce Academy that we had earlier in the month and how it has provoked something of a debate about cancel culture this week as it's been in the news. I'm joined today by Andrea Williams, our Chief Executive. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you.
Hey, good to be here.
And also by Libby Littlewood, who was at the Academy in September. Hi, Libby.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Andrea.
Hi there, Libby. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah. So, Libby, can we just start? You were at the conference, weren't you? The Academy. You were there the whole week as a delegate, although you also spoke and shared some of your story. Tell us, what was your impression of the Academy? Did you like it? How was it like? How was it for you?
And also, Libby, a little bit about who you are. I mean, you're a theology student, aren't you? So, we have theology students, law students. So, your motivation for coming on the Academy?
Yeah. So, like Andrea just said, I'm a theology student. I enjoy writing. I sort of want a career writing about theological topics and biblical studies. And I'm a street pastor as well, and I do a lot of work with X Out Loud Europe and Core Issues Trust and that kind of thing. And so I didn't actually know about the Wilberforce Academy until a few months ago. I got an email inviting me to the Wilberforce Academy. And then I was sort of really interested. What is this? Why have I been invited? What's going on? So I kind of feel like I'm one of the people that's a bit more new to it than maybe some of the other delegates that were, had been looking forward for years or something. But I was sort of told, it's a Christian Concern run it. It's a bit of an academy. You get to meet other Christians. You get to stay on campus and learn about what some voices that are in the field of sort of practical theology and Christian apologetics and sort of what they think and how that might apply in your life. So when I actually got there, it was quite overwhelming. There were so many other Christians from across the country, from other countries. We met people that had worked with Christian Concern. We had some testimonies of people who had worked with Christian Concern. We had some brilliant talks on law and Christian morals in the workplace, and we were sort of really encouraged to reflect and think on these topics in application groups that were suited more towards our own context. There were legal minds there, or there were people who work in the media, or I was in a group that sort of had a lot of pastors and people who work in ministry. And we would just discuss how it all fit together for us. We would debate things and we'd sort of agree or disagree on different topics, and so it was just a really good place to have that safe space to be able to speak about things and know that you can kind of come to a critical conclusion about those topics.
I love all of that. We had the vision for the Wilberforce Academy some 11 years ago, and it really was to equip the next generation to be able to boldly proclaim the truth of the gospel in whatever context they are in, as they look at their own fields of study, whether that in the social sciences, in medicine, in law, to really look at how they can view that through a holistic Christian
Mm.
And it's great to hear Libby's testimony there of how wonderful it was to see that across the contexts a couple of weeks ago at the Wilberforce Academy. I think, when we look at the kind of education that we're getting generally and at university, it's really important for our young people and for our next generation to have the tools to understand what it is and the lens through which many of their professors and teachers are teaching them, and to have some ability to look at the Christian worldview and how that makes sense and how they can make sense of their studies through that lens. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. in a world that is so heavily full of teaching that is to that.
Yeah. So, and if you're watching live right now, do add in your comments or questions, particularly if you've been to Wilberforce Academy before, this year or previous years. Just put in your comments about what it's like and how you found it. So, and Libby, you also shared something of your story. I don't want you to tell the whole story now, but just a little bit of your story and your background as well, which helped people. Do you want to just explain that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So that's the controversial part, I guess. I'm ex-transgender, so I do a lot of work with Ex Out Loud Europe, who are sort of do a lot of work with Christian Concern and sort of know people from Christian Concern, and that's, I guess, how I learned about Christian Concern in the first place. Was I think Andrea came and spoke at one of our support groups, which was really nice. So for me, I was brought up in a very secularized Christian background, a very progressive Christian background, and I ended up living as a transgender man for about 6 years or so, and then I ended up very slowly kind of coming to the conclusion that I understood and respected a more conservative Christian view, which sort of led to, you know, with my relationship with God, that led to me starting to live as a woman again. And that's the story that I was telling in a bit more of a lengthy version at Wilberforce Academy.
Yeah, and it was fantastic, your story, Libby. You shared it really, really well with a great level of maturity and perspective, and I know it impacted a lot of the delegates there. So this, we all had a great time there. We enjoyed it. It was a lovely venue at Worcester College in Oxford, and the staff were lovely, and we got on well with them, and they got on well with us, and they said, I hope you can come back again next year.
They said they didn't want us to go.
and we said, yeah, we'd love to come back again next year. And then this week, suddenly we read in the press, initially in some student magazines, but then in the Telegraph this week, it's reported that some students of the college, not Wilberforce Academy students, not students who'd actually attended the academy at all, some students of the college had complained about us being at Worcester College, and then even more incredibly, that Worcester College had apologised for allowing us to be at the college, and said they're going to review their booking procedures going forward. So, Libby, what was your reaction when you read that story and found out about that?
I think my initial reaction was sort of a bit of dismay. I thought it was really difficult for me. I'd just been at my orientation day at my university. I'd been telling staff and students, I went to this Wilberforce Academy and we learned about this, that, and the other, and I've got these books, and it's really equipped me for my next year of university. I've got a bit more of a balanced approach, and I can be more critical with my assignments and my essays. And I was on the tram home and I saw this article, and the first thing I thought was, why do they have to, why? And then, of course, I kind of, upon a little bit more reflection, I read through the article, the first article on the Oxford tab, I think it was.
Yeah.
I read through that article, and I think the first thing I thought was, there needs to be a dialogue here. There needs to be more of a balanced approach. Who's spoken to Christian Concern? Has there been like a private dialogue with Worcester College and Christian Concern about this? And also, I've just come back a week prior from Wilberforce Academy, where I learned about how to apply my faith and speak out about my faith. This is a brilliant opportunity to test whether I'm going to do that. That was my kind of initial response.
Yeah, that's great. And I can see that Lee Riley has posted on Facebook about her experience. Thank you, Lee. What an amazing experience it was to be at Wilberforce. You lovely people. The love was incredible. I'm saddened about what's happened, but sadly not surprised. Let's all stand together and stand for Christ, for the rights of Christians. May God bless you, Christian Wilberforce, and all my brothers and sisters. United. Thank you, Lee. Yeah, so we are also saddened, and and we are a bit surprised as well, aren't we, Andrea? Given, you know, we had a good time at the college and we like the staff and everything, and the college hasn't come and contacted us about it at all, as far as we're aware, has it?
Well, I think that's one of the extraordinary things, that the college would go ahead and apologise in the way that it did without calling us first for an explanation to talk through the programme. So I was surprised that I had sort of been really happy that the Worcester College experience of Wilberforce got passed without an issue this year. We have had issues in previous years at different colleges when essentially people find out that we are there and then they label us transphobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, because we are seeking to equip the next generation to understand these things and to be able to speak into them from a biblical perspective. So we've had previous issues. So in some ways, it's not surprising that we would have an issue this year, but it was so quiet at Worcester College. No one was there. We were the first group back. We were the first people back. And the
first event post lockdown, I think, wasn't it? First event post lockdown.
And they were so excited to be back and to have us there. Yeah. And it was a beautiful week. The sun was shining. And you can feel the love. You've heard from Lee and you've heard from Libby. I mean, Libby came out of a transgender background and came here to give her testimony. And you can hear that. What does she want to do when she sees what came against us? She says, "Where's the dialogue? I want to dialogue because I want to talk about these things before we are shut down and labelled transphobic, homophobic." The truth is, they don't allow us into the colleges. You know, once we've got a booking for next year at Worcester College. They need to honour that. We hope that they will honour that booking. But, you know, there's a group of, you know, I would say it's fairly militant students that actually decide that they want us. And essentially it's not us. It is us, but it's the Christian message removed from that context. That's what we all know this, don't we? That's what they are really offended by. And so, you know, but when we look at Libby and when we hear her story, there's a great story of freedom and change and the truth setting us free. And I think that many of the students are there that were there this week hadn't really spent time listening and unpacking from a biblical and a cultural apologetic perspective and a worldview perspective, the whole trans ideology, homosexuality, and the possibility of change, and what they are to do as a young generation in the midst of this, because they've been so taught that the society's way. I mean, at this particular point, you know, from the nursery school, practically, that actually to think differently.
So, Andrea, the other thing that sort of emerged out of this is that the new provost of Worcester College, David Isaac, was formerly the chair of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And in that role, only, I think earlier this year, he boldly spoke out for free speech in universities, in places of higher education, and said explicitly that universities should take bookings without regard for the, you know, not sort of discriminating on the basis of beliefs and views, and all of that kind of thing. And that, you know, we should robustly defend higher education. I'm quoting him. "This is why I believe higher education institutions have a responsibility to be bastions of debate and independence of free expression." And he quotes George Orwell: "If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear." And then here he is, when he's put in charge of a higher education institution and somebody complains about something they do not want to hear, which they did not hear because they weren't at the event anyway, right? You know, they didn't even hear it, you know, and then they complain and, "Oh, I'm really, really sorry that you didn't hear."
It's the very existence, and it's the very existence of the message. It's the very existence of the truth, and this is why our motivation always has to be love. It's the very it's the fact that we believe this. It's the truth as it is found rooted in the cornerstone, in the Lord Jesus Christ, and that is where the offense is. So people can speak about free. It's the most strange. It's a strange phenomenon and also a very spiritual one. That this truth that is so beautiful and so freeing, that is found at the cross of Jesus Christ dying for our sin and making all things perfect in Him,
Yeah.
It's the thing that offends. How can something so beautiful offend so deeply? And again, also what you see here is the prevalence of the kind of the fear. It's the fear. It's cancel culture, and it's the fear. Somebody complains, says, "I'm offended at this message."
Yeah.
You know, how can somebody like Libby, for instance, and that great message of hope that she speaks?
Yeah.
I lived as a man for 6 years.
Yeah.
And people needed to tell me. People needed to tell me the truth to set me free.
Yes.
Where were the people telling me the truth? Where were the people drawing alongside me? The church needs to hear that, and young people need to hear that.
Yes. Yes. I see we've got David McCareth there. Great to have you watching, David. And David's case, I think, is coming up next month, is it?
Yes, it is.
Which is about using enforced use of pronouns, gender pronouns.
An
Libby,
amazing doctor.
do you feel like people, you know, as part of the X Out Loud team, X Trans yourself, do you feel like people want to silence your voice, your plural voice, in this kind of way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was literally just yesterday I was on Facebook and another X Out Loud had a complete stranger sort of commenting on his personal posts, trying to silence, trying to kind of disregard very openly any message of Jesus, even just knowing that we have shared these testimonies, that we are not falling in line with the cultural sort of climate where you're born gay or you're born trans and you stay that way forever.
Yeah.
We definitely have that. We review Chorus's Trust or X Out Loud on the Facebook, and people send laugh reacts to our comments to try and sort of pull us down a bit. Even in my own church context, there's not been active silencing and there's not been active disagreement, but there's been, in a lot of churches that I've sort of been around, there's been a fear of speaking out. There's been a sort of a fear of me sharing my testimony openly in case it does offend someone, in case the church numbers go down, or in case it scares someone off who might want to join the church otherwise.
Actually, it might encourage people. I think, you know, people want to hear the truth. That's the bottom line. But I can see Sophie Johnson-St-V has also commented. Thank you, Sophie. I attended Wilberforce Academy this year, found the staff from Worcester College amazing experience. Finding out about the article was shocking, and it sparked me to show love to others. Thank you, Sophie. And in our groups, we discussed both sides of the table or viewpoints. Great. And by the way, we're not saying anything at Wilberforce that we don't say out loud or in public or on live streams like this or whatever as well. Anyway, the controversy on this reached Parliament this week. Actually, in a discussion about the new Higher Education Free Speech Bill, which would actually make it, in law, you have to not discriminate against groups booking places at universities on the basis of what they believe. And therefore would make it illegal for Worcester College to discriminate on that basis very clearly. This came up, and I think we've got an audio clip of some of what was said. It's not it's about 4 minutes long, and it's sort of clipped into particular sections, but you can hear how Wilberforce is mentioned. Let's have a listen to that.
I want to, if I may, just highlight an example of the kind of concern, the kind of nature of complaint that I think we're talking about, which was reported since this committee last sat, just in yesterday's Daily Telegraph. Oxford College, run by former Equalities head, apologises for hosting Christian conference. In a new case of cancel culture, Worcester College acknowledges, quote, distress caused to students. An Oxford College run by the former head of the Equalities Watchdog has apologised to students for hosting a Christian conference. In what has been described as the latest incidents of cancel culture at British universities, Worcester College acknowledged the distress it had caused students by hosting a Christian Concern conference. Christian Concern held its annual week-long Wilberforce Academy at the beginning of September whilst Worcester College was closed for the summer break. The evangelical group says that more than 100 young people were very warmly welcomed, including by the Provost, received many compliments from the staff, and were not aware of any complaints or concerns. However, students, presumably from Worcester College, are understood to have complained that the curriculum for the residential camp was Islamophobic, as it included a discussion on the nature of Islam. Now, I'd just like to make 2 points, if I may. One is that, yes.
So she's describing an event that went ahead and wasn't cancelled, and then
one person is standing.
And some students have complained about it, and they acknowledged the hurt, but they aren't proposing to cancel it in the future. So what's the point?
I think the endeavour is to cancel this in the future. No, but I am. It is my opinion that the endeavour is to cancel this in the future. So, Islamophobia. The definition of Islamophobia was actually discussed. May I finish this point, and then I will, of course. Was actually discussed in a debate in this place just a few days ago. The Minister Eddie Hughes MP said, "We cannot accept a definition of Islamophobia that shuts down legitimate criticism and debate. Freedom of speech is the foundation of a healthy debate and disagreement underpinned by the values that bind people together: tolerance, equality and fairness." It seems to me that the mere discussion, which appears to be the allegation in this case, of the nature of Islam cannot possibly be construed as Islamophobic. I give way.
Well, I entirely endorse what my honourable friend has said, and of course, once the Master has apologised, it's unlikely that the conference would be run there again. That's the point. And often the people who issue these apologies are not malign, they're not malevolent, they are weak and weary, they are befuddled and bemused, and this Master may not be the brightest spark in the fuse box, we don't know. But clearly he wasn't shining brightly on this occasion.
Thank the gentleman for that comment. My final comment is this. The Wilberforce Academy has been held at Oxbridge Colleges for the last 11 years. I've actually spoken at one of their conferences in one of those past years, and I know that the students who attend that conference are serious young people seeking to inform themselves about current issues of the day. And we need to encourage that, not shut it down.
Well, that was Fiona Bruce MP talking in Parliament earlier this week in a debate about the Higher Education Free Speech Bill. She bravely mentioned Wilberforce Academy and even said that she's spoken there, as she has. She's been a guest speaker at our closing banquet at least once or twice, and worked down really, really well. We love Fiona Bruce, and we thank God for her and for her raising it in that way. And of course, the point is that David Isaac has apologised, but not only did he apologise, he also said that they would review the booking process. So it is clear that in his intention, it is not to allow Christian Concern to go back again, because otherwise, what's the point of reviewing the booking process?
Well, where we've been removed in from previous colleges, they, even if we've got a provisional booking for the following year, they essentially close us down. They have renovations; they're already fixed. I say, well, how about in 5 years' time? Can we come back in 5 years' time? The answer is no.
Yeah.
So we've got, Worcester College is not alone in this, and let me say as well, though, that every single time, the staff love us, because of course the young people are amazing young people, and that's actually the truth. And in fact, we've had porters from colleges where it's blown up in the past who've come and found us at another college and said, just to say, we remember you, we stand with you, we think you're a great group. So I mean, people have actually come and found me to just reassure us, and that's but the truth is we don't. The reason why we go back, and we were so pleased that it all passed off beautifully and without incident this year, but the reason we go back is to say we won't be shut out. We love the Lord Jesus Christ. We love to think in this with a Christian worldview which we think makes sense of everything, and we want to test it. And we want to test it really hard, and we want to work it through with the next generation of young people in public life. And we want to be there. We want to be in Oxbridge. We think we don't want to be hounded out of town. And that's why
that's really the question, isn't it? You know, should people who, why keep coming back to this point that the people who complained weren't even there? They didn't even hear what was said. That, they weren't being offended by what was said at the time at all. It's just even our very presence that the thing that people objected to. I just want to show up Neil Deep-Narain. Nice to see you, Neil, has commented as well about him being part of the Academy. So thankful to be part of the Wilberforce Academy 2021, my 6th Academy. How do you manage that, Neil? You must have been working for us. Okay. And it just gets better, he says. I'll leave the people behind the scenes to put that up on the screen in a minute when they're ready. But many the stories from all of the people who attended are this kind of thing. My life will never be the same again after the Wilberforce Academy. The staff of the college are so blessed by us and love us and see how their lives are touched by us. It's just amazing. The impact the Academy has is life-changing for so many, and may the great work of the Academy continue. So thank you, Neil. This is the kind of thing. But it's interesting because Fiona Bruce mentions Islamophobia there. And one of the things that the students objected to is that we had a session on the nature of Islam. And it is kind of extraordinary, isn't it, that they don't even want people to discuss the nature of Islam. In that session, all we did was look at what the Quran says about things. Libby, what do you make of the allegation of Islamophobia from that?
I think it's really strange coming from I'm literally a Bible college student. I'm a theology student. I did a unit at my college, which is actually a fairly liberal Bible college. I did a unit at my college last semester called Religions in Contemporary Britain. We discussed Islam, we discussed Hinduism, we discussed Judaism, Sikhism, Buddhism. There was no, what we did at Wilberforce sort of added to that for me. I think it's a really common topic to discuss. I think it's a really liberal topic to discuss in general, because what you want to do is you want to find out about different cultures and different religions and what they believe. I think the idea of sort of cancelling a talk on the nature of Islam or cancelling any kind of discussion on Islam, is that not Islamophobic?
It is. Well, yes. I mean, quite. What are people afraid of? You're not even allowed to talk about Islam at all. What is the problem with talking about Islam? We've got no problem with Muslims or anybody else talking about Christianity. Great. Go and look at Christianity and talk about it. That's fine. Got no problem with that. How come when Christians want to talk about Islam, suddenly people are upset about that, and they weren't even there? As I keep coming back to
Muslim friends. A lot of us are, going home to then now we know how to talk to our Muslim friends better. Now we understand them better.
And one of the sessions was called, I think it was, perhaps you'll remind me exactly, Tim, but it was, how can we talk to our Muslim friends? It was actually how to talk to them. And I think that, the point about it here is that to actually look at what the Quran says and to critique it, to understand it, to then work out how we can talk to our Muslim neighbours and friends in this nation is really important. And part of that week was also in helping the young people in this next generation to work out how they navigate transgenderism, sort of the homosexuality, all of the things that they are facing. Islam, how they are to navigate that within their context, how they are to speak to their friends, how they are to work that through whilst maintaining a distinctive Christian witness. Is that all possible? How are they to do it?
Yeah. And there's been a big debate, as Fiona Bruce mentioned, on Islamophobia, and I've previously commented. I think maybe our friends will put it up on there about the nature of the definition of Islamophobia. What is Islamophobia? Because that's a real problem. But the other issue that the students took issue with is this whole point about conversion therapy, so-called conversion therapy, and they saw that Mike Davidson was there at the conference and got very upset that somebody who, again, they didn't hear and didn't see, was there at the academy. Libby, what's your reaction to this whole thing about conversion therapy?
So do you mean conversion therapy just in general, the topic in public space, or regarding Wilberforce?
Well, it's controversy.
Yeah, it's something that we've sort of been looking into and trying to sort of open this dialogue up when it comes to sort of the work that I do with X Out Loud and Core Issues Trust and the IFPCC. It's a really strange thing because there's definitely, spiritual abuse goes on, therapeutic abuse goes on. These things aren't restricted to the topic of homosexuality or transgenderism. And the sort of the legislation that seems to be sort of proposed kind of comes from a lot of conflation of different ideas. It comes from this idea that they will talk about electric shock therapy and coercive, like corrective rape and this kind of thing, which aren't practices that go on in the UK.
And would be outlawed. Would be criminal, would be outlawed. Yeah, would be totally outlawed.
And it was with a talk therapy that we do, which I haven't had professional therapy, but I'm part of the X Out Loud. We have a support group.
Yeah.
And that's a bunch of us getting together, talking about the Bible, and then someone might say, "Oh, this happened in my life today, and I really struggled. Can we pray about it?" I don't see where there's sort of it's almost like people are made more afraid than they need to be about a ghost that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and all Mike Davidson does is talk to people, doesn't he, who want to have a conversation about sexual identity, sexual orientation, sexual issues, whatever, and they want to have a conversation about it because they want help with that, and that's all he does. And the government has said they want to ban conversion therapy, whatever that is.
There's no definition.
Yes, and Mike Davidson becomes the focal point for how awful is he. But all he's doing is talking, right? That's all he's doing. And then these students object that Mike Davidson was there, so they don't even want somebody to talk about it who they didn't hear and weren't there. You can't even talk about having conversations with people in private. Otherwise, you're offending people who weren't even there. I mean, this is an extraordinary level of, sort of like, you're offended that somebody spoke somewhere near where you're not even there at the time, but somewhere near you will stay eventually about a topic which you don't like and don't want people to talk about. And then the college still apologizes for that.
It wasn't even, they didn't know how long Mike spoke for.
No, he didn't know very long.
He came in on mid-Thursday morning.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there for the entire academy.
Yeah.
I think I potentially did more speaking in that session than Mike did. He really left the floor to the ex-LGBT speakers for that one.
Yes.
And I think that this is one of the big battles of the autumn in Parliament, or probably this year, in this parliamentary year. There's going to be. There is a push. The government has said that it will ban conversion therapy, but conversion therapy is a term that's been imposed on us by the kind of people that complain about us at Worcester College. They're imposing a term on us that we don't do, that does not exist. The truth is that Jesus Christ says about all human sexuality, he says that the place of sexual expression is within marriage, one man and one woman. That all sexual expression outside of that context is sinful. Now, there are many people that want to move away from sexual behaviours, all kinds of sexual behaviours, and seek help to do that. There are many people that want to move away from all sorts of behaviours that aren't sexual behaviours, and they seek help to do that.
Yeah.
What the government is doing, especially with that definition, is moving to a place whereby entering consensually into any conversation about that may well render the person that talks to someone guilty of some kind of offence, and that's going to be a very dangerous place for people to be. Sadly, what it will do, it will silence many people won't go there at all. when we know that in a broken, hurt and lost world, people want to move away from the things that are hurting them. And, you know, even this week, I've been looking at the induction packs for university students going to university at various universities. And one of the things that some of the students have to do is look at it's like a consent pack, you know, it's all about having sex, and it has men and women having sex, men and men, women and women having sex, and then actually what does consent mean? And this is actually something that the universities are giving to their incoming students to help them to understand about sexual behaviour and about lines of consent. And I'm looking at this for our 18 and 19-year-olds, and I'm really surprised. Well, I'm not surprised by it, but how is that really healthy? And let me say this: when we're living in a world, if we're living in a world where that kind of thing is the expectation, or that one of the fears is that there will not be consent, can you imagine all the hurt lives and the broken lives of the students, of what's going to happen in these freshers' weeks, of the regrets that the students live with? Do they not need people to talk it through with? And are the people that talk to them, are they going to be safe if they talk to them? And, you know, there's increasingly as well this within the conversion therapy term that's entirely not defined. But what we're hearing increasingly is the shift away from electric shock therapy, which of course was only ever practiced really by medics at one point. It's now outlawed. Now into a spiritual abuse, to heavy pastoral shepherding. And of course, we do know that this can exist just generally in life. Things, you know, but the idea that is going to be imposed upon anyone, potentially, that helps people or talks to people about unwanted sexual behaviours, it's very dangerous in terms of straight freedom. And imagine cancel culture. That person said I could move away from unwanted sexual behaviours. I can't. It's offensive. I've been hurt. Their practice should be shut down. That church should be shut down.
Or they offered to pray for me or something like that. You know, that's the thing. You know, yeah, suddenly you find yourself having committed a criminal offence by offering to pray, offering to talk to someone, that kind of thing. This is where it goes once you criminalise conversion therapy. So it's a real issue. Listen, so, you know, we will see. You know, the fact is we have successfully held 11 Wilberforce Academy events now. Every one of them, they're fantastic. We see lots of young people enthused and encouraged and equipped to get out there and preach the gospel and stand firm on the word of God. And we're raising up a new generation, are we not, Andrea? We'll carry on.
I'm so excited about this next generation. And why am I excited about them? Well, I think that they are living with the fruits of a society that's lost her way, that's turned her back on the Lord Jesus Christ, something we were rooted in Christian principles and precepts. And now the sexual chaos, the ideas of chaos that abound just generally in our institutions, and our young people navigating that world. This generation of young Christians, they see the hurt, and they see people that are hurting, and their hearts long for restoration of broken hearts, broken spirits. You know, they long for it. You can see it, and you can also see it, this intimacy and vibrancy and the reality of their faith. And so what I'm longing for is to see this, I call them I want to see a Reformation revival generation, you know, that they've got out there with tools of hope for the people that are around them. And they're a bold generation. They can be bold because because there is so much hurt. And also there's not very, and I think, is that right, Libby? Do you see that? I mean, you yourself have been in a place of brokenness and hurt, and, you know, when you see things clearly, you can see how you're being restored. We can just see it even in your face and in your body and all of these things.
Yeah, it really excited me to be at Wilberforce, just to meet other young people like myself. And, you know, we weren't trained to think the same way. We came to each other thinking the same way. And I think a lot of us went out of our way to find people who think similarly to us. And it honestly, from the friends that I've made there who I still talk to, or video chats or messages going back and forth, we just talk about how amazing it is that we were surrounded by people who are like-minded, because in our daily lives, it's generally quite a struggle. It's generally, we're the odd one out in the secular space. We are not encouraged by our workplaces or by a lot of the people who just work around us, the coffee shop that we go to, or the supermarket or wherever. There's rainbow flags hung up in Tesco, and there's gay pride flags, and there's more acceptance and tolerance for halal food and Islam than there is for somebody preaching the gospel in the town centre. And so actually being able to just meet people like us, it showed almost the depravity of that in our own contexts. So if you think we're bold, then that's probably why, because otherwise, like, we've stood out for our whole Christian walks, really.
Well, thank you for standing out. And I can see Matthew Greck, who also came to Wilberforce last time. Didn't have it last year because of the pandemic, but the year before that, was to have you there as well, Matthew. And he says, "We stand with you, Wilberforce Academy, Christian Concern, Libby and Mike. We're proud of your stance. You're blessed as you enjoy opposition for the sake of the gospel. Turn up the fire of the Spirit of God, the voice of hope and righteousness. The Lord is roaring against your enemies, and the armies of heaven are behind you. Go." Well, great. Thank you very much for that. And that's a good note to sort of close the discussion, really. Do keep praying about this, and we'll see how it develops. It's clearly the story's not over yet in terms of how this goes on with Worcester College and Wilberforce Academy, and we continue to raise up the next generation, however way it goes. We will be again here on Round the Table next Friday, so do join us for that. And also upcoming is a gospel issues seminar event on how to sex-proof your children on Monday the 18th of October. Just to put in your diaries, 8 p.m. That will be a really interesting event to come and watch and participate in. So thank you for joining us. Thank you especially to Libby for taking the time. Appreciate that. And look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.